Good afternoon. Time to get started. I am Lieutenant Colonel Glenn Rioux. I am the Deputy for Plans and Coordination for Maryland Wing, the Deputy Commander of Cadets for St. Mary's Composite Squadron, and I have the honor of being the moderator for Session 6 today and introducing someone who I know very well. So a couple of admin items before we get into the introduction. If you have any questions, please do either type those in chat or hold them to the end. I have disabled mic input for anyone who's not a presenter, so you can't turn your microphone on. That's just to keep the presentation itself moving, and then when we get to the questions session at the end, that's when we'll have all the Q&A piece of it, okay? In addition to that, I will post in the chat a link for a survey. Please do fill out the survey, and I will post it in there probably more than once. And the last thing that I would ask is, just as a backup to make sure that we are appropriately documenting your participation in this session, if you would please, in the chat, type your name, CAP ID number, and your unit, then we will ensure that you get appropriate credit for attending a wing level conference event. We do have your name, obviously, from Teams, but this is just a good backup just to make sure that we're able to fully capture that and nobody, unfortunately, might slip through the cracks. So we're already seeing some of those pop in, so thank you. I do appreciate that. As you're typing those in, I'll go ahead and start with the introduction. Our speaker today is Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Rioux, and he is the Maryland Wing. He holds a Maryland Wing duty position as the Assistant for Plans and Coordination. He is the St. Mary's Squadron Composite Squadron IT Officer. He is a three-time awardee of the Maryland Wing Webmaster of the Year. He was the distinguished graduate for the Cadet Cyber Defense Training Academy, has an associate's in computer science, and works as a software engineer for the Navy. He also wrote the calendaring system that the Maryland Wing staff now uses, and will hopefully be available to all Maryland Wing squadrons here not too distant future. Six-time Cyberpatriot participant, completing first or second out of the state each of those times. Cyberstart 2020, top 40 out of the nation, and just overall trying to present to you why he is fully qualified to give a presentation on cyber in the Maryland Wing. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to my son, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Rioux.
Thank you, Colonel. So today I want to go over cyber education in Maryland Wing and why it is important and what we can do to help promote it. So specifically, we will be going over why it is important, how is it that we are currently handling cyber education and promoting it in our squadrons, and then finally, what else can we do and how can we further promote cyber education? First of all, why is this something that is important? The first reason I'd like to present is that I like to argue that it is the fourth official mission of CAP. If we take a look at the mission statement from which we can derive CAP's main missions, we can see that there is, at the end, a mention of the promotion of cyber power. So going forward, I like to refer to it as the fourth mission for CAP. Some other interesting statistics to help lay the groundwork. First, I have a couple that demonstrate the severity of cybercrime in the modern day. And on top of that, we also have a couple of reasons to support just providing basic cyber education, since all we really need to do is provide our members with the ability to recognize these different attacks and put them out before they even occur. And then finally, CAP, we're all about preparing our cadets and equipping the current members, and this is a great market to push people towards and to help provide the resources to encourage growth. We also want to excel. It's one of our core values, and given how the promotion of cyber power is, as I said, one of the core missions of CAP, it is something that we should especially want to excel at. So how is it that we are currently handling cyber education? Well, from a national perspective, we have Cyberpatriot. Cyberpatriot is a great program for helping cadets learn more about the defense aspect of cybersecurity and for helping show what different operating systems can do. It helps overview the different defense aspects. NHQ will also be providing the Aerospace Dimensions module, specifically focusing on cyber. Thankfully, this will be coming out next year, so in a relatively short amount of time, actually. And then finally, NHQ is also apparently starting to experiment with Cyberstart, which is a capture the flag competition / game that we can provide our cadets access to. However, I would say that we aren't following the idea of excelling. So this past year, there were 9 Maryland state civil air patrol teams. I say state because one was from NatCap Wing that was meeting in Maryland, and 2 were from St. Mary's. So there are 6 in. So there were 8 teams spread across 25 different cadet and composite squadrons in the wing. So it's not quite as many as we'd like. Hagerstown and Hartford are good mentions because they had podium finishes in this past year at the state level. But we can do better. Let's compare ourselves to California Wing. California is a name that's well recognized among Cyberpatriot competitors. It's the one that always rises to the top. So they have 17 Cyberpatriot teams, and this is not the best thing to compare ourselves to because they have a larger population, they're going to have more cadets, and due to COVID, we're also still going to have fewer cadets of our own. So this is not what I want to compare specifically, but just to give you a percentage, we can then take how many are in the different tiers. They have 11 platinum tier teams, which comprises about 64%. So of our 9, we have 2 in the platinum tier, and then the rest filling up the gold and silver. So this is the point I want to compare, is that most of our teams are in the gold tier, and there are wings which have most of their teams in the platinum tier, and this is something I'd like to see happen as we move forward with a cyber education program. Another interesting thing that we can compare is how it is that Maryland Wing currently handles emergency services and compare that to cyber education. So of the people who are active with GTM3 and GTL, there are 135 and 41 respective. If we would like to include those who are expired or are in training, then those numbers balloon to like 325 for GTM3 and 94 for GTL as of last Saturday. We have multiple curricula, including the Green Book and a testing program through Squitters. And then finally, we have partnerships with FEMA and MEMA, where we help them and we can provide goals for our members to allow them to partake in those relationships and to provide stuff at the federal and state level through FEMA and MEMA, and they in turn help us with education tests and such. Now, if we can compare that to cyber education, we had 8 or 9 Cyberpatriot 12 teams, which is about 50 or 60 people. We don't really have any curricula nor testing strategy, and we don't have a partnership with a security organization where we can provide members to help and they can provide cyber education. So this also brings up the point that we don't have a nice way to measure how it is that we're doing with cyber education, because as you see, we have only approximates for the number of people involved. But the main question I want to put forward is, can we put the same level of energy into cyber education that we do with emergency services? Maryland Wing is doing a great job preparing for when, say, a hurricane hits. We have a lot of resources that go into that, and it's something that we've been doing for 75 years. Can we take that experience and the things that we've learned from emergency services and put that into cyber education? Because hurricanes, they hit not too frequently, or at least not as frequently as a cyber attack. And so we spend so much time preparing for the relatively infrequent hurricane when there's cyber attacks that are happening every 39 seconds. Now, I definitely want to address the fact that cyber is different. It's much harder due to the fact that it's not only a different environment due to different training material, but we are now definitely in a different environment with COVID happening all around us. And also, when we are doing our recruiting and we're putting out recruiting stands, not many stands that I know of are recruiting for cyber education. And the flyers that we have don't mention cyber power as a forefront activity like emergency services, like aerospace education. So given all of this, what is it that we can do? So the different recruiting techniques, we can reach out to different industries that they can to ask for hardware. It's not uncommon, especially down in St. Mary's. We've been able to meet with several organizations who have been willing to donate hardware to help further a cyber education program, and to also help at the wing level with respect to hardware. We can also give recruiting drives, which mention Cyberpatriot alongside SARXs, which can bring up the demonstration of Cyberstart while also showing how cadets are doing orientation rides. So we can bring this to the forefront and not just have it as a background, and we can recruit people based off of cyber education. I myself remember not being recruited based on cyber education and kind of adapted and changed my view of the program as I noticed that that was something that was available, but that's not something I want to have happen to other people because they may not be recruited for the same reasons. They may, and it might be more appealing to them if they see it as something that goes along with what they want to do more. So what are the core areas of cyber? What is it that we are promoting? And what alongside that, how can we teach these, and what are these things that we need to teach? So my stance, I'm going to be going over cybersecurity from a blue team perspective, from a red team perspective, and then programming. And for those who don't know, blue team is where you are given a computer and your task is to secure it, where there are several security vulnerabilities already on the computer, such as a backdoor that's running somewhere. And your job is to hunt those down and eliminate any cyber threat there on that computer. This is complemented by the red team. Red team is a type of competition where you are given a computer system and your goal is to probe it and to find if there's a hole that you can take advantage of and further gain control of that computer system, usually to find, say, a flag, a small bit of text to put in as for points. And then finally, we have programming. Programming is quite a vague topic, but we can go over that a bit later. So currently, for these three areas in cybersecurity blue team, we have Cyberpatriot and the AFA cyber camps, both provided by the AFA, and they do a good job of showing how it is that we can defend our computers. For Red Team, like I mentioned before, we are experimenting with the Cyberstart program, which can help us provide a game-like experience to cadets to go through these little challenges to use, say, cross-site scripting to inject into an email and send it off to a fake server. And finally, programming. Cyberstart does have a streamlined programming experience. However, it's definitely not the focus, and so something that we can probably expand on with, say, Khan Academy's course. So first of all, let's go through each of these and dig a bit deeper. First of all, Cyberpatriot. Let's focus on what it is to our cadets. It's a competition which challenges teams to find and fix cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and teams are scored on how secure they make the system. Cool. So what kind of systems do they use? Well, these are split into the two different challenges. First, the network security challenges is where they are provided with a Windows virtual machine and a Linux virtual machine, and they find and fix different security holes specific to those operating systems. The Cisco networking challenge is a challenge where we are given a virtual network, and in that network you have different routers, and it's kind of like a college campus, and you are given the task of configuring all the network servers on this college campus so that people can connect from one side of the campus to the other, or from somewhere arbitrary inside the campus to the internet. And to help build off of those skills, there's also a quiz. So this is all well and good, but what does this teach our cadets, and why is that good? Well, first of all, it definitely provides fluency with a variety of different operating systems, specifically different variations of Windows and Debian, and the Cisco iOS, which is loaded on the routers in the Packet Tracer Challenge. And most importantly of all, the transferable skill of security-minded thinking. We want to teach our cadets cyber education and how to defend themselves and other computers, but what it really boils down to is critical thinking and the security-minded thinking. Do I need this program? Or is this program suspicious? Hey, I was looking through the open communication channels on this computer. I noticed that there's one that we don't need. Can we close it? It can also help with other competitions, which can in turn help learning in that experience. Specifically with Cyberpatriot's complement Cyberstart. In Cyberpatriot, you can take some time and configure a web server and fix it. Then when you go to Cyberstart, if you are presented with a web server, you remember, I fixed it like this in Cyberpatriot. Is this something I can try in this environment and gain points that way? So next, Cyberstart. Cyberstart is a gamified capture the flag challenge with 3 primary areas. The first is a general puzzle section, I guess. This is where you can go through different cryptography challenges or security challenges like, here's a sign-in form, here's some information, can you try to guess a way to get a password reset link set? Or SQL injection to list out details from a web server that weren't necessarily supposed to be listed out. The second area is where you can learn Python and use Python scripting to solve small challenges. And finally, the third area is an area focusing on forensics, where cadets download a binary file, and there's lots of interesting ways to hide data in those binary files. For instance, a stag hide program, which uses steganography to hide bits inside of another file, or the combination of 2 files where it looks like an image, but inside that image, there's, at the very end of the file, the start of a zip file, and then you can take the zip file out. Overall, Cyberstart has over 230 of these individual challenges. They range in difficulty. There's always going to be something to learn. I did not quite know when I stepped into this to experiment with National on this, but I definitely found myself learning a lot about exploiting different binary programs that you can download on a computer and run as an executable file. So something to learn for all, but it definitely does allow for someone to step up from not knowing much to challenging everyone. So specifically, how does this work? You are given a challenge. This is for like level 5, challenge 4. It is to go through a list of passwords and see if you can find the password for a specific user. And it says that the flag is his password. Great. So you can go to the challenge. I have a terminal. I can list all the files, and then I can find the name in that list of files. And you can see there's super fast exclamation mark. That's the password. If I put that inside the insert flag box and hit enter, I would gain points. Why is this something we want to teach our cadets? Why do we want to show cadets how it is that we can find passwords? Well, if I were looking through the news and I found out that there's a security breach and a lot of passwords were leaked, I want to go and check that my own password is in there. And if it's in there, I want to change it. I want to find which account that belongs to and change it. Knowing how easy it is to search through lists of passwords like this can provide a sense of, it can provide cadets the knowledge of, hey, I should check frequently, is my password correct? So again, this does teach different cyber techniques that we want. First of all, understanding internet exploits. And understanding internet exploits is great because that way you can try to avoid them. Like I said, with the password cracks, if we have a leaked list of passwords, we can change those and make those passwords invalid. Or say there's a virus that's going around. Like let's go back a few years, the WannaCry ransomware program that went around the internet. That program, taking it as a case study, can help you understand that it was easy to block in some systems if you just updated your computer. So that's something that we want to help teach our cadets is if you understand these, you can generally understand how it is I can block them, and you can teach cadets to take steps and block them these security vulnerabilities themselves. It also helps to expand upon the critical thinking aspect and the security-minded thinking. This is all practice about how it is that we can protect ourselves, protect our cadets, and protect our computer systems. For instance, I showed how to get a password from a list of passwords and sign in, or a password from a list of usernames. So we can ask, am I vulnerable to the same attack? And how can I prevent that? Or Facebook, for the second question. How can Facebook be manipulated into providing unauthorized access to my data? What can I do about it? Can I go through the privacy settings and check on those and see what kind of thing, how it is that my data is publicly available? And again, this complements Cyberpatriot, so you can take things that you learn in Cyberstart and figure out how to fix those in Cyberpatriot. Finally, we can take a quick look at programming. This is quite simply the vaguest topic of them all because you can automate tasks, and these tasks can be as small as like read the temperature from a Raspberry Pi and write it to a file, to a calendar system, which automates the management of events across units. We can also work on different projects and teach our cadets to do so. For instance, the management of the code used to automate those two different tasks. One of those is going to be simpler to deploy. Just put a Python script on a Raspberry Pi. One of those, that is not something you can just put on a Raspberry Pi and run. So the ability to understand how these different projects work is a valuable skill that we can teach our cadets. Cyberstart is definitely an avenue to teach the ability to automate tasks. As you can see here, we have a script. On the left, there are lots of comments. The main takeaway I want to provide with this, you don't need to read through all the code, is that it shows you how to manipulate a list of things and asks you, please manipulate the list of things in this specific way. If you do so, we'll give you points. It's fills in the same session that the cybersecurity challenges, the other half of Cyberstart does, but this area specifically focuses on programming. So what does this teach specifically? And why is it relevant to cybersecurity? It definitely helps to understand how a computer works, because if you write a program, you'll soon understand that computers are very dumb and literal, and they'll do exactly what you tell them to do, and that programmers are often writing programs that are filled with errors. So we can then ask ourselves, why is it that this program may or may not work? We can think critically about how a program might be executing and try to follow the computer in its execution. That can also be used to think, how is it that we can exploit this bit of code? And complementing that, how can we patch it and prevent that from being something that is exploited? So why is it that I'm wanting to push for all three of these areas? First of all, they definitely complement each other. Cyberstart and Cyberpatriot will provide a lot of the what. What is it that I can do to fix this error? What is it that I can do to take advantage of this exploit? However, programming can be used to back that up, to provide the why and the how. Why is it that this exploit worked? How is it that this web server is working, so that I can better understand why it is that this other exploit works? And again, no one topic covers everything, especially when you want to look for educational resources. It's possible to find defensive resources, but probably more often than not in the industry, you're going to look for penetration testers who will try to break into a system. There are definitely certifications available for hacking into systems in an ethical way, and those tools are useful for defense just as much as actually defending. And again, programming can be used to back all of that knowledge up so that way you don't have cadets who are like, I just did this. I don't fully understand why or how this improved my situation. And that's one of the benefits of programming, learning to program. And finally, for the preparation of our cadets, we want to raise up cadets who know what they want to do, who have a passion for a specific field, and we can provide them the educational resources to go out into the cyber world, similar to how we provide aerospace education and pilot's licenses. So what is it that we can do going forward? Well, this is the point where I'd like to open up the forum so that we can do some brainstorming. Does anyone have different ideas? I'll be recording them so that we can use them at a later date.
And for our audience, I have allowed for you to be able to unmute during the presentation, and you can also type your questions or suggestions in the chat box, and we'll capture those as well.
An interesting problem that I've had with regards to education is finding those resources. Oh, a presentation to provide to new cadets, that's definitely a good idea. A standardized presentation, even better. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea.
Colonel Ryu, Major Trick here. What are your thoughts on a way to modularize this and turn it into bite-sized pieces similar to the Squitter program that we have for emergency services?
I definitely like that idea going forward because it provides a great way for cadets to take the vague topics I just described and narrow them down into small actionable items that they can sit down and do and learn something from. And on top of that, Colonel Pryke, if you wouldn't mind correcting me if I'm wrong, I believe that the history of NISA and the Green Book stemmed from Maryland making the Yellow Book, which was the precursor to the Green Book and helped form some of the emergency services program. And I don't see a reason why we can't do that for cyber as well. The squadrons who don't have cyber teams should be able to use the rest of us as an avenue to be on a team. Yeah, so coming together and finding the teams that need more members, is that kind of what you're talking about? Okay.
Yep, and Major Trick again jumping in. I definitely want to make sure that Maryland Wing squadrons have access to that. That's something that I've been trying really hard to do. Is link our folks together based on expertise. I think we had some success doing that this year. Took our teams from 8 in 2020 to 12 for this season. So I definitely want to have more meetings like that, so we can get the right people in the room, have more discussions like this, round tables, where we're just kicking around ideas on how to train and how to execute.
Yes, certainly. We definitely want to provide those connections for cadets and squadrons.
So with that in mind, I'll add that Cyberstart, they should have some new tokens coming out for free for our cadets in the near future. I got in touch with some points of contact from that organization, and that is what they told me, that they were interested in expanding the program among organizations like ours. They started with Junior ROTC, but now they're rolling with Civil Air Patrol, and we're definitely happy to be a part of that partnership. And I think that'll be the next big push that you can expect from our folks who are involved in cyber, me, Colonel Rioux, and a few others. You can expect to see us pushing Cyberstart, because that seems like a program that is already fairly well, as I was saying earlier, modularized. We'll just be looking for a way to get people through that. I know one of the big things about that program is that it is time limited. Colonel Ryu, you have a lot of experience in that program. Could you speak to the time limit, how long it takes, to complete, and then how long the window is open? It's only for a month or so, isn't it?
So for the Cyberstart program, I don't know what their schedules are entirely like. They seem to be undergoing development still. But for this past year, for 2020, it was open from July to September, beginning of July to the end of September, where cadets could spend as much time as they wanted or as little time as they wanted, anytime they wanted on Cyberstart, which compares is much better in my opinion than say Cyberpatriot, where it's a 6-hour competition once every month for 3 months. And it allows cadets to, it provides cadets many, many more opportunities to come together, to organize, and provides a lot more content. To answer what you're looking for?
Yep, absolutely. And and I just wanted to highlight the fact that there's a time pressure there. You know, it's not like buying a lot of online courses you purchase and they're open for when you decide to complete them. And for Cyberstart, it's a series of tokens that are really only available for, as Colonel Rioux said, 3 to 4 months. So there really is a time pressure on our people to start learning. Colonel, I'm going to give you an opportunity to toot your own horn here. You got some recognition in that category, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I was, like you said, that it's a time competition, so they do certain things, like for instance, at the end of the entire competition, they look at who has earned the most points according to a score sheet, which can include things like having the most game points at your school, or squadron rather, or doing certain social media activities. They select 20 boys and 20 girls who score the most on those sheets to be known as a top agent. So that's one of the things that they reward. The other, at the end of every month, they check to see who gained the most points. That's another thing that can be recognized for. And finally, the programming section, they check to see who it is that does the most in there, percentage-wise. So if you complete 100% of them, then they'll take the top 3 people who completed the programming section, and there's an award for that too. Which actually is, there's a good amount of competition in that for CAP. Compared to JROTC, CAP had like 9 people who completed 100% and 1 person 97, as opposed to the other arena with, I think they had 50%, someone with 50% completion in the top 10. So it's a good competition for CAP, good goals there's lots of people to compete against. And at the end, there's a real capture the flag competition of, here, you're gonna sit down and you have a week-long session to start your capture the flag, and you end it, and it looks to match other capture the flags that are out there in bigger scenes, I guess you could say. And for Lieutenant Higgins, the too much for everyone to get together annually, quarter monthly to do these things, that is a great idea that I can note down. The thing about that is I don't know that we currently have a meeting space, virtual or physical, to currently do that. We did it once with the virtual cyber camp this year. We could probably do that again. Discord, Microsoft Teams, any of those are valid options too, but that would need to be something that would be set up. But that is definitely a great idea, especially if we can do it more frequently.
Yep, I am absolutely on board with that, and I think that would go a long way towards answering the other question in the chat there, regarding how do we get started up with this. That's definitely something I want to facilitate as DCP. I want to try to get more folks off the ground with this kind of stuff, and there should be some opportunities to work with existing Cyberpatriot teams and get yourselves oriented to that kind of competition. And when the new Cyberstart tokens come in, that'll be a great inroads as well. Colonel Ryu, could you plug a few of the resources that you mentioned earlier in your presentation again? When do the new tokens come in? Your guess is as good as mine. I'm just told soon. Colonel Ryu, yeah, could you plug some of the resources in your presentation? You mentioned Khan Academy and a couple other things. Could you go through those again?
Yes, sir. So those were more specific to the programming category of teaching. The first was Khan Academy. They have an excellent computer science course. Personally, my favorite because that's where I started, but there are probably others around there. I just use Khan Academy as an example of, hey, let's see if we can find a free online resource that we can give to cadets with a structured, with a curriculum to help cadets move along. And the other thing I said was projects. That was much more general, kind of tagging along with the example I had later on of the Raspberry Pi. Write a script for it to take temperature and save it to a file. We can make a small project like that, or we can, we can make different projects like that, maybe of different scale, but we can provide those to cadets to experiment with. Yes, that exact link. I do want to note that with projects, it's something that will require a lot more work than just giving a Khan Academy link, as it's something that we don't have something set up for already. So Lieutenant Higgins, competition in the off season, you bring up a great point, and that is why I'm really excited about Cyberstart, because it is a much longer period. Hopefully they will also allow for signing in the off season. For some reason, even though it ended like end of September, I'm still able to sign in right now. So I hope that they will allow for continuing to sign in and allowing people to continue to push in that area. And that's also why I think that providing like the squitters would be great, because we don't have anything in the off season really.
So with regard to the squitters, could we get a few folks in the chat to speak to their IT backgrounds, if any, cyber backgrounds, if any, because this is something that we're going to be. This is something I'd definitely like to figure out. I'd like to see if we can collaborate and put together something akin to a ground team book. Thank you, Lieutenant Higgins. Something akin to a ground team book to get our cadets started in cyber, to get our teams acclimated to the environment, so Cyberpatriot is not such a big leap, and so we have something to work from outside of the Cyberstart seasons. Would anybody like to offer some qualifications they might have? Oh, Major Williams, thank you. Anybody else, or just coaches if you've coached a Cyberpatriot team in the past? Engineer and computer scientist, thank you, Lieutenant Higgins. Computer science, software engineering, fantastic. Yeah, so like I said, we're going to be looking to reach out to people and collaborate and figure out how we can put something like this together. All right, fantastic. we're going to be looking to put together a team. I'm not asking anybody to sign up today to write an entire book for us. I'm just trying to get some ideas together on who I might even be able to ask questions to here and there, and really get a solid understanding of the subject matter, so we can move forward with generating something like a cyber squitter program.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is the seasons, the competition seasons. So Cyberpatriot really kicks off kind of summertime with training and practice rounds, and that's really the time to roll your sleeves up and get your hands in there with the cadets, in interacting with them and standing over their shoulder. Hey, did you think about this? What about that? Strategy kind of things. Well, like right now, this weekend, when it comes into the competition, you're not allowed to do that as a coach. So all that has to happen kind of earlier. By the time we get into the competition period, it's not really as much of a training interaction opportunity from a mentor perspective as it is an enabling function for them to continue to explore and grow throughout the Cyberpatriot season. So understanding and breaking those down into, well, summer training season, fall competition season. Those are two different sets of goals from a mentor perspective, and two different levels of participation. And then when you start talking about Cyberstart and when the tokens are available, and now we can kind of take a step back and see where that fits into the calendar, as well as for windows or for periods outside of those cyclic events. How can we have some kind of a training opportunity? How do we create and manage the appropriate tools, the images, whatever we're going to use, in order to enable that kind of participation, that kind of instruction? And those tools are not trivial to create. So it definitely takes time and effort, and doing that intelligently interleaved with to complement the already existing competitions, I think would be key to moving this forward on a larger scale. All right, so I popped this up here a little earlier and then stopped sharing it because the conversation didn't really allow for it. Apologies for those of you who saw this in the last session, but this is yesterday's St. Mary's Composite Squadron Cyberpatriot competition. We have 4 machines here, and these 3 are each running Cyberpatriot. The 3 on the left are each running Cyberpatriot competition images, and we had our cadets at home, remote controlling the computers, maybe more than one at a time. So that way we didn't have to try to move images around between cadet home locations and how do we transfer them and everything. So these are decent machines. They're not screamers. Those i5 processors with 6 to 8 gig of RAM. And there are Cyberpatriot computers anyway. I just used Teamviewer software, so that way we can have the cadets remoting in, and then they were all up on Discord in different voice channels. Sometimes they would splinter off to just the Ubuntu image, voice channel, or however they were arranging it. But it actually went quite smoothly. It went well. and the cadets did a great job on the competition yesterday. So trying to think outside the box with how can we connect the cadets in these kind of competitions, not just the competitions, but also in the planning and coordination that's leading up to them. We certainly need to take advantage of the experienced cadets' availability and experience to be able to help us as coaches and mentors moving forward with a coordinated cyber approach. To Senior Member Naya, yes, we are able to use Teamviewer for free for the competition. That's Maryland Wing has a Teamviewer, Maryland Wing has a Microsoft Teams account, and we are all able to get accounts for that. We used was it Teamviewer?
Colonel,
Yeah, Teamviewer. I'm sorry.
Could you explain what Teamviewer is for the uninitiated?
Sorry, it is a remote control software. So when you can start it on one machine. Let me see if I have. I do have it. Okay, so you can start it on a computer. And then it comes up and it gives you credentials so that someone else can run the Teamviewer client on their computer and remote control, like total, move the mouse, enter keystrokes, all of that stuff. It works very well, and it is free. It's free for personal use. I kind of extended that out a little bit for a cadet education competition. That would probably be an appropriate use of that technology. I had not contacted the manufacturers or the squadrons who do use Teamviewer, or excuse me, who make Teamviewer, but I intend to do so.
And I think this would be a good time to plug the fact that we're working on a virtual training environment right now at the wing. You'll see more about that hopefully within the next 6 months, but the idea is effectively to give our cadets, with a lack of resources, access to the competition that we want to go ahead and do, whether it be Cyberstart or Cyberpatriot. The computers don't have to be high end, but they do need to be higher end than, say, what I have in my house, for example. So to that degree, we're trying to cut down on the barrier to entry. And the idea would be that we could give somebody a laptop with just internet access, with just the ability to use a browser, and that they would have access to run complete Cyberpatriot images, at least in a training environment, if not for the competition itself. So we're really working hard at Maryland Wing to go ahead and try to expand this environment and make it accessible to everyone.
Yep. So basically, that it's an amazing opportunity, and it takes that photo with all those computers sitting around on the table, and it makes it to where units and cadets don't have to have all that, and they'll still be able to participate in everything. So it's a great capability that Major Trick has been working on to bring online. All right, so we're a couple of minutes over time, but that's great. We had some great conversation and some back and forth. We have some great ideas that we brought out with that as well. So thank you very much. If you have not already, please post your name, CAP ID, and unit in the chat so that we can capture that, give you credit for it. I posted in the chat the survey link. I'll post it in there again just so that it's at the top of your list there. Please do take the survey. And in 6 minutes, please join us for our next presentation with the Cadet Programs Roundtable here on, let's see, that's session 11. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you in a few minutes.